everyone. Welcome to Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor. So now, before we go any further, let's open in prayer. Today, our prayer comes from the Daily Word. Matthew, in chapter 5, verse 39, says, "Resist, not struggle." I am the energy that trusts God to guide me through each challenge. I lay down my weapons of resistance and struggle. Then my energy is free to turn to the light and the loving calm of spirit. Now I am the harmony and clarity which is Christ in me. My prayer is to overcome the battles and struggles with life. Turn them over to the Holy Spirit and trust in His guidance to safety and peace. A Course in Miracles says, "Let not my world obscure the sight of Christ." I would bless the world by looking on it through the eyes of Christ. Lead me from the darkness to the light, from sin to holiness. Let me forgive and thus receive salvation for the world. Amen. And now I think it's time for some music. Yay!
It is. Please stand. And in the theme of November, which is release, we are going to sing "Letting Go of Holding On."
Me to this now moment. Here I am that I am, has sent me to this now moment. Here I am to be the voice and to be the heart through which heaven is made known on earth. To be the voice and to be the heart through which heaven is made known on earth. I am that I am, has sent me to this now moment. Here I am that I am, has sent me to this now moment. Here I am to be the voice and to be the heart through which heaven is made known on earth. To be the voice and to be the heart through which heaven is made known on earth. I am that I am. I am that I am. I am that I am. I am.
There is a quote that is found in the Gospel of St. Thomas that Jesus is said to have said. And the Gospel of St. Thomas is one of the books that is one of the older books. It's not in the Bible, but it is one of the older books of Jesus' sayings. And some of the sayings can be rather paradoxical. in this quote, he said, "Blessed is he who existed before being born." Blessed is he who existed before being born. You know, this reminds me of a Zen koan. And the one it reminds me of is, what was your face before your parents were born? What was your face before your parents were born? In Zen, a koan is a riddle. It's a paradox with no solution it's something you can't answer with your mind. And so in the training of Zen monks, the leader of the monks would have his new novice monks meditate on such a saying, such a riddle, such a paradox. And what was your face before your parents was born is one of them. And so it was to make the monks to go beyond their mind, go beyond their logical reasoning. So both in Jesus' saying and in the koan, what they are pointing to is being itself. They are pointing to our true spiritual essence. They're pointing to our Christ consciousness, the truth of who we are. Our first unity principle states that there is only one presence and one power active in the universe and in my life. And we know, if you've been in unity, you know our 5 unity principles. And we're going to touch upon every one of those principles this morning. But so the first one is that there's only one presence and one power. And we can call it by many names: God, Spirit, Source. It's absolute good and it's everywhere present. Now, if there is only one presence and one power, then that means we're part of that one presence and one power. We too are divine. And Jesus totally grasped that. He understood that we are divine. He said, "I and the Father are one." And we can say the same thing. There is no disconnect. We are one with Spirit. The only disconnection is in our minds. So, if we're divine, then why do we struggle? Why do we suffer? Our third unity principle states that we create our life experiences through our way of thinking. It is the thoughts that we hold in mind that create the experiences that we have in life. Last Sunday, we began our exploration of the power of release and the power of letting go, which is the 12th power that we're exploring this month. And the focus of my message last week was letting go of the false ideas that we have of ourselves. And I'm continuing with this message today. So, in a nutshell, our whole spiritual journey is awakening. Awakening to the truth that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And these are two totally different perspectives from which to view life and from which to live our life. Choosing to live a life from the first perspective, that we are egos having a human experience, guarantees that we are going to struggle. Guarantee. Struggle is a habitual mindset of our egos. One of my favorite spiritual teachers, contemporary spiritual teachers, is Adyashanti. And you've heard me quote his works before. Adyashanti was trained in the Zen tradition. He he lives in the Bay Area and has a large following. His friends call him and followers call him Adya. And he's a wonderful writer, there's some wonderful videos of him speaking, but I'm going to be quoting some of the things that he says. And again, he is one of my favorite contemporary spiritual teachers. And the quotes that I'm going to be using are from his book called Falling into Grace, a great book. And Adya says, every birth in the world of physical form is given a sense of self so that the spirit can then operate through it. And we believe that here in Unity as well. We have there's a lot of alignment with Adya's teachings and Unity. But we are given this body. We come into this world. Spirit comes into this world. Spirit incarnates into this world through us to have its being. We are individual expressions of spirit. And the thing is we're spiritual beings having and making all of these experiences, and they're such realistic experiences that we get totally lost in this earthly experience. And we forget who we are. We forget that we are one with Spirit. We're not the egos that are separate from God and each other and all of life. We're not egos, clawing and trying to get our way to the top. That's not who we are. We are spiritual beings. And creating this wonderful experience here on, or not, here on earth. Creating it with our imagination, creating it with our thoughts. Adya says that our immersion in the egoic state of consciousness is ultimately the cause of all of our suffering. It's essential that we begin to shift our consciousness. We must awaken to our natural state, to our Christ consciousness. We need to wake up to that truth of who we are, the spiritual beings that we are. But first, we have to see that our normal state of egoic consciousness is a state where we tend to struggle. In fact, Adya says that struggle is necessary in order for the ego to stay, or us to stay, in the egoic consciousness, or the egoic state of consciousness. Struggle is what the ego feeds on. And Eckhart Tolle tells us the same thing here. So after we see that we struggle, we must next try to understand why it is that we struggle. Why is it that we fight against what is? Why is it that we fight and struggle against what was, or what is to be in the future? Because after all, that's what struggling is based on. Fighting what is, fighting what was, and fighting what may be in the future. So we let go of struggling when we stop fighting what is, when we stop fighting what was, when we stop fighting what will be in the future. We let go of struggling when we let go of our insistence that things have to be the way we think that they should be. And we let go of struggling when we let go of arguing with what is. And we let go of struggling when we stop blaming. And we let go of struggling when we stop trying to make ourselves right and make other people wrong. And we let go of struggling when we stop complaining. So as long as we're struggling, it's going to be hard for consciousness to shift from that egoic state to that more open, more natural, more expansive state, which is spirit, our natural state of love and openness and peace and well-being. Our fourth principle is that our lives can be changed and transformed by prayer, through the power of prayer. There's a verse in Mark 4:39. It's the story, you probably remember it, where Jesus is in the boat with his disciples and he's fallen asleep. He's fallen asleep, he's sound asleep, and a storm brews up. And the boat is being tossed back and forth, and his disciples are horrified. I mean, they think, and Jesus is asleep. And so they wake him up and they say, Master, we're all going to perish. And the Bible says that what Jesus said was, peace, be still. And then according to the story, it became perfectly calm. Peace, be still. Peace, be still is a great affirmation that we can use. It's a great sort of a mantra, if you wish. If we find ourselves struggling, it's a nice little saying, really to the point. Peace, be still. Another one of my favorite verses is from Psalm 46:10, and that's, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. I worked at Silent Unity, which has a 24/7 prayer support. And there's a huge room and there's a little chapel up there where someone is in that chapel every single hour of every single day. There's someone there, and I've been there. And it has a wonderful feel about it. There's just something, you walk into that room and there's just energy there. But anyway, on the wall is that verse, be still and know that I am God. So Adya, he says, silence is the ground from which awakening springs. He says it's the ground from which we shift out of this egoic state of consciousness, out of this belief in separation. Adya says that though it seems like it would be hard not to struggle, it isn't. What makes it seem hard is that our sense of self, our little me, our ego, is trying not to struggle. And as long as we, as a sense of self, as long as we, as our egos, are trying not to struggle, the very intention to do so sets up a tension inside of us. It's sort of a psychological or an emotional tightness within us. I've mentioned this before, but I have struggled with what I call writer's block. And one of the things when I first went into ministry that I was sort of seriously dreading, was having to have a talk every single Sunday, coming up with something fresh and new every single Sunday. And so I would be, trying to write something, and I would just, I was struggling. I was struggling. I would just hit this block. And I finally realized that my fears that I had said was coming upon me came upon me. Because that's what I had feared. And it came about. My thoughts caused that. And so after a while, I realized I can just let it go. I can just let it go. And if I need to rest, I can rest. And if I find myself struggling, get up, do something else. Don't just sit there and struggle. So I've learned, and I continue to learn. So recognize that peace is here now. Even if your mind is confused, even when you touch upon that peace, your mind automatically sort of wants to, your ego, wants to move away from it. It wants to argue with it. I mean, you touch upon that peace and then the ego wants to argue with it. Oh, I can't be at peace because I have to do this or I have to do that. This question or that question has not been answered yet, so I can't be at peace. Oh, and so-and-so has not asked for forgiveness. They have not apologized, so I can't be at peace. So there's all sorts of reasons that we think something needs to happen. We think that something needs to change, but it's just a dream of the mind. Also found in the Gospel of Thomas is the quote here that Jesus says. Jesus says, "The kingdom of heaven is spread out upon the earth, and men do not see it." The kingdom of heaven is spread out on the earth, and men do not see it. We've been given, this idea of a heaven up there, a place somewhere else where there's peace and there's rest and there's happiness, and it's something we attain in the future, or we even have to die first to attain it. But Jesus is reminding us in this verse that heaven is right here, right now. It's out there waiting for it to be manifested by us. Everything we see is a manifestation of spirit. Seeing, we need to open our eyes and see the world through the eyes of Christ, where we see Christ in every face that we look upon. Allowing our spiritual essence to come through doesn't mean that we must ignore our bodies, or our minds, or our personalities. I'll just say that your inner spiritual presence, the truth of who you are, is an absolute lover of what is. All of what is. So what is can only be experienced in the present moment. What is the truth of who you are. What is the moment that you're experiencing right now, right here. And it requires a response from you. And you may not like what you find yourself in. You may not like the experience, but it does require a response. Whatever moment, whatever experience we find ourselves in is here for our growth. And it's inviting you, this present moment is inviting you to remember who you are. So, as we grow in consciousness, we come to realize that there is a natural flow to life. And flow is the lack of resistance. It is effortless, and when we are in the flow, we cease to struggle. And choosing to live life as a spiritual being, having a human experience, places us in the ever unfolding, expanding flow of truth and life. In all of its beauty, in all of its power, in all of its creativity, wholeness, peace, love, joy, and well-being. These are our natural qualities as a spiritual being. The 12 powers that we have been exploring this whole past year are also our natural qualities of spirit that lie within each and every one of us. They lie within us as that infinite potential, ready to be called called forth and brought into manifestation by us. And these qualities that we have been studying this whole year, these 12 powers, they arise naturally in us when we become conscious of our spiritual nature and our connection with all of life. And these qualities, they grow and expand as we express them and put them to work in our life. And as our fifth unity principle states, knowing and understanding the laws of life called truth, that's not enough. A person must live the truth that they know. So as I bring this talk to a close, I want to read a short paragraph from Adya's book, Falling into Grace. And this is what he says. He says, there's really nothing to learn here. Awakening is actually a process of unlearning. The important thing is where we're acting from and where we're relating from. When we relate from our true spiritual essence, then the relating is transformed. Our relating is transformed. And then what we say to each other carries a whole different feel to it. It is then that we become expressions of peace rather than expressions of the insanity of a divided world. This revelation begins with the recognition that you are not your mind, you are not your ego, you are not your personality.
And now we invite you to just listen and say to yourself our love offering blessing, which I'm going to say now. Divine love, in me and through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
And can I invite you to stand up as we say our prayer of protection? I'll say the first part and ask you to follow. The light of God surrounds us.
I am light.
The love of God enfolds us.
I am love.
The power of God protects us.
I am power.
The presence of God watches over us.
I am presence.
Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. And my friends, you truly are. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great week, everybody.
Did I come in too early when you said thank you? Because I thought, oh my gosh, you're
No.
going to say something else.
Nope, that was perfect. Yeah.